Hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast, hosted by myself, Greg Oram, and fellow Forest fan from across the Atlantic, Richard Spray. Oh, yes, it's a nice one, I think, tonight. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, good. Much better now. Oklahoma Sooners kicked the crap out of Alabama. It was a fantastic night.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we won't talk about that because we're here for Nottingham Forest now.
Sounds good.
But I'm glad that you're feeling better. I mean, American football isn't really my thing, but I know you're trying to work on me for that. It was defeat on the road for the first time this season, and it sees the Reds drop down for the moment to 7th in the Premier League. Forest conceded 3 goals for the second game in a row with back-to-back defeats and Arsenal dominating the game throughout. And in all honesty, we're fortunate that it wasn't 4 or 5. A depleted lineup with key players missing through injury or jet lag saw Forest having to use their squad depth, something that has been championed as being the best we've had in years. Is that really the case? Or did yesterday's result highlight that the team struggles to function without a Morgan Gibbs-White or Elliott Anderson? Here to go through all of that and more, we welcome back Raf the Random Pundit and live from Texas, USA, Bruce Johnstone. That's enough of that. Texas, I had to introduce you with a little bit of music, Bruce, because I thought, you're joining us from America, as is Richard. How are you doing, Bruce?
Doing well this morning. You're getting me out of having to watch the Dallas Cowboys, so I appreciate that.
Excellent. Raf, how are you doing, Rafiq?
I'm nearly, I think, out of my hangover from Friday night, but yeah.
Good. Don't forget to join us and join in with us in the chat. Drop your comments. If you don't say hi, then we don't know that you're here. And of course, we like to give shout outs if we can. We thank you for joining us on a Sunday evening. We wanted to get our post-match review show in at 24 hours after the final whistle. It is a Sunday night. Maybe you've just had your dinner. Maybe you've just come off the golf course where you've done 18 holes, Surge. And of course, maybe you're listening to this later on Apple or Spotify with your headphones on. You could be sweeping the leaves in the garden like I was earlier. Perhaps. We thank you for joining us as well. Stick with us. We will be drawing the winners of our Talking Reds Nottingham Forest giveaway just a little bit later on. Okay, so stick around. That's coming up. For the moment, we're going to get straight into talking about yesterday's match. Got a few people joining us early on. Don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe if you can. You can follow us on all of our social media channels. The card is on the board. All right. So, yeah, defeat on the road. It was a tough match. I think 24 hours down from that game finishing, we've all kind of had chance to maybe rebalance a little bit. Richard, give us your general thoughts on how that match went.
Yeah, I kind of aligned with what Nuno was saying afterwards in his press conference. After the match, he basically said it just wasn't a good performance. He was trying to be respectful of what Arsenal did, but he felt like we did not play our game. He specifically outlined the fact that we weren't compact enough and solid enough throughout the match, talked about how much we just gave away too much space to that midfield in particular and to the wide areas, and just talked about how clinical they were, and they were. I mean, that's what good teams do. Great teams like Arsenal will take advantage of when you don't play well and you don't play tight and focused and technically sound. And the way we've been playing defensively all season, and we just weren't good on the counter. We really didn't create any opportunities. We had no shots on target. I mean, you look at every metric for this match, it was the worst we've done this season. So, but it was from a great team's performance. I agree, but at the same time, I think we just didn't play comprehensively very well at all. So too much space.
What about you, Raf? I know you said off air that you were just starting to feel a bit better. How was the match in your opinion?
The disappointing thing, like actually when we were previewing it, I was just going, look, the result's not important to me. I thought we'd lose. We did lose. But it was about getting a performance out of it as a bit of a springboard to then going into the other games. We didn't get that. But Arsenal played way better than I thought they'd play. And they are now back to everything clicking. Got their personnel back. They're back to title challenging form, as it were, in that performance. So actually, when it comes down to it, I'm not overly bothered. I think I would rather the team have a huge wake up call in this type of game where I'm not expecting us to win, and they really go 100% at Ipswich, because that is a game that people I think will underestimate how difficult it is going to be. So it might be a bit of a blessing in disguise. And for me, the scary thing is, like you said in the intro, we've lost 6 goals in 2 games. We're still +2 in our goal difference, having conceded 6 goals in 2 games. So I'm not going to get all panicky. I've got to see the bigger picture for the season. I am not actually that down. It's just my hangover was really bad when I was watching the game, and that made it a lot worse.
What about you, Bruce? Did we just catch Arsenal on a good day, do you reckon?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm chalking up to it. Of course, I was hoping we'd be a little more competitive than we were. But Arsenal, like Raf said, they're catching form, which was kind of what I feared. Odegaard was absolutely amazing. He controlled the game and orchestrated that midfield, and which absolutely just tore us to pieces. It was hard to find bright spots for us, and Arsenal, there was quite a bit, unfortunately, but we gave them too much room. We gave them too much respect, and they took advantage of that. That was a little bit disappointing, but just as I forget who said it in the comments, a bad day at the office, and I'm not losing my head over this loss. This loss is what I expected, and now we're just looking forward to maintaining the form and getting the form back, I should say.
Sure. Richard, let's have a quick dip into the comments then, shall we?
Yep. Good evening to Kel. Appreciate her jumping on. Gary Lamb, good to see you, buddy. We've got Wake Up News. Totally agree. That was shocking yesterday. I guess shocking in terms of our performance, not so much the result, probably. Megan Katie Lyle. I don't think we've had her on before, so really appreciate her joining as well. And I think we've also got Peter Cook. And he said, yeah, it's a poor team performance all around. Couldn't agree more. Looked a little bit like Cooper prior to being sacked, which is kind of accurate as well. And then Steve, appreciate him jumping in. And I think that's it. I think that's who we've got right now, just from a shout out standpoint. So I appreciate you guys jumping in. And I agree with this comment too. That was the differentiator, right? I mean, you look at the way they were performing prior to Odegaard coming back. And then once he stepped on the pitch, he was the best man on the pitch, him and Saka. And we also got Annie Houston and Forest Fan TV as well. So appreciate them jumping on.
Good evening to you guys. Thanks very much for being with us. So team selection then, we talked about it in the pre-match, and we all thought Gibbs-White would be there, but he wasn't, and he wasn't even on the bench. So there was a little bit of music, or noise rather, from the social media and from fans in general complaining that Morgan had gone off to England and yet couldn't feature for us. And they likened it to Odegaard, who didn't go off to Norway, and Saka, who didn't go off for England, and so on. I mean, I thought, Morgan could quite easily have tweaked something in training since rejoining Forest. He played in that first game against Greece and set up the 3rd goal. I was at the game against Ireland, and I was watching him on the sidelines. He was amongst the substitutes. He was ready to play. So to me, it feels like, it's quite possible. He's come away from England. Maybe, he probably wasn't 100% fit, let's be right. But we've talked before about, has he possibly had his England career come and go now with all the people that are challenging for those positions? James Maddison back in the mix possibly with those 2 goals yesterday as well. I'm not going to write Gibbs-White off because I love him. I think he's brilliant, but I can understand why he wants to go off. He missed the camp, the second camp with injury, and getting called up to go off to play for England. I kind of feel like, I don't blame the guy. And of course, no Anderson because he was injured. And then, of course, Chris Wood benched because we've got to respect the jet lag, as apparently came out from the press conference. So we were looking a bit different. But I put out a tweet that said, I thought, it shows our squad depth and we still looked quite good. But as I said in the opening, Richard, is our squad depth as good as we think it is? Because we offered nothing yesterday. I watched the match and Arsenal were fantastic. From the off, they really pinged the ball around. Martin Odegaard back playing to a level that, to be honest with you, was really fantastic. And Saka was on it as well. And we just didn't really seem to have an answer. So as much as we were missing the likes of Gibbs-White and Wood and Anderson and so on, would it have perhaps made any difference had they played, do you think?
I think it would. I mean, it's one thing to have depth, which I agree we do have. And the way that we've recruited that has been great, as we said many times previously. The difference, though, is when you have two creators like you have in Gibbs-White and then Anderson, who also happen to have really high work rates, who also happen to have the ability to ping a pass in critical moments to open things up, right? None of that was there. And so when you don't have that on the pitch, and that also, I think I put out a tweet or at least a message to the group, this is a time when you wish you had Danilo as well, because he can do elements of those things. And Anderson also is good coverage from a defensive standpoint. So you just didn't have that type of player present. You have a guy like maybe Callum Hudson-Odoi, but again, he's not going to shift over into that 10 role and do that. I think Raf talked about that in the last pod about how well he does from a creation standpoint. I think we showed a graphic on that as well, but unfortunately, none of that was present. So you're just left with a lot of players good players that you would appreciate and want to have on the pitch. Guys like Alanga on the right with that pace and that ability to cut across the ball, but he just wasn't utilizing his pace as frequently. So and I think Raf, you even said you had to have the best games out of those two guys, out of Callum and out of Alanga, and you didn't quite get it. So by virtue of that, it just never opened things up for us offensively. Like Nuno talked about it, all aspects offensively, we were incredibly poor, all aspects, and I agree with that.
Raf, let's look at the sort of first 20 minutes or so. We were lucky to not go down. There was a goal that was ruled out for offside. I mean, it was given on field, and the VAR confirmed it. So it was an offside goal, but it was marginal. I mean, it was like inches. So that was, or should have been, the wake-up call. And then what went wrong for that goal with Saka? I mean, it's criminal to allow even a world-class player, potentially, like Saka, that much time on the ball. He had like 6 to 10 seconds with the ball at his feet. And you just knew that he was trying to get a shot off. And to allow him to get that shot off, I mean, I know it's kind of similar to when Callum's in possession, going down that left wing and cutting in. It doesn't feel like the defenders can do much to stop him shooting. But could those defenders have done more? Can we point the finger at anyone in particular on that goal?
So I think there's a certain stage where, and we've seen, like you say, when Callum does it to others, you've got to hold your hands up if the play was just actually top draw. And the fact that he didn't try and bury it in the kind of top corner in the direction he was going and actually cut the shot back across Sells. I don't think Sells could have done anything about it, to be honest. The one person that, I'll come on to just as a general theme is Ward-Prowse. And he was supposed to be tracking Saka across the box and didn't get his body in the way to block the shot. But again, it was just wonderful, wonderful play. But to me, and this is what I talked about in the pre-game show, my main worry was the midfield three of Arsenal. And to be fair, I just didn't understand what we were doing in the setup, given that you had three people, and it was right from the beginning. When we didn't have the ball, Yates was the furthest forward of all of our players, including Taiwo, for some reason. Now, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking his job was to try and cut out the transition through Jorginho to open up everything. But that wasn't happening. So if that's not happening, there's no point in him being there. And Ward-Prowse was at the base of everything. Now, as a skill set, Ward-Prowse to me is a passing person, and Yates is a tackling person. So why were they not the other way around to play to their skill sets? And about that creation, if Yates doesn't create by passing, none of his metrics show that he does that. He gets in the box late when other people are passing, but he doesn't pass. So why don't we have Ward-Prowse further up the pitch to get that passing creation going? The whole thing was back to front. And when you've got one that way and one that way, Dominguez is left by himself in the middle, trying to pin the whole midfield together. And that's why there was so much space. And Dominguez was getting dragged, like my fear was, over to help Saka out because Callum Hudson-Odoi was not tracking back. And it was just causing absolute bedlam on the right-hand side. And this is exactly what happened in the first half of Leicester. And it irked me, the fact that I am not a footballer. I am not a manager. And before the game, I said that was what was going to happen. And yet it transpired. And someone who's a professional can't see that and set the team up to actually do something about it.
Yeah, very frustrating. Bruce, let's have a quick chat about Anthony Elanga. He's had a lot of criticism lately for perhaps not being so forceful with his running or not being productive. He's not looking like the player that we had last season at the moment. Do you think it's time for maybe Elanga to come out of the team?
Yeah, Elanga's, like any player, there's got to be a certain amount of confidence in their play, especially attacking players, it seems. And Elanga has completely lost that, it seems. He picked up a knock, that obviously hurts, but taking that and the performance out of it, the last 3 to 4 games, when Silva comes on, he's on another level. He's better. He creates more. He's more involved, and he's better defensively. It's been time to make that switch, in my opinion. It's not just because he's a fan favorite and everybody loves his hustle and what he does, his energy, but as far as a skill set, he seems like he's more involved and he's overall better. I don't know if the worry is, can he last 60 minutes, 70 minutes, or even 90 minutes or what have you. But, I mean, listen, if he can come on and do a job for 60 minutes and then bring Elanga on to finish the game, to me, that's still a win. That's still a great, because Elanga still has that explosiveness to change a game. But, yeah, no, it's definitely time. And hopefully he does make that switch, because – listen, it doesn't just happen on the pitch. You can see it when you're in the crowd. There's a certain energy that just erupts when Jota comes on, and he just there's excitement that he creates. And yeah, no, I'd love to see more of it.
I've been a person championing Jota Silva for quite a while, as you perhaps know, and everyone listening knows. I thought when he came on yesterday, he wasn't as impactful as he has been in other games. I don't think he was as good as he has been. He was still good. He still shows a lot of energy. I mean, he almost got booked within a second or two of coming on, and he was miles offside to score that offside goal, and still didn't think he was. And he goes down better than anyone's ever gone down ever. So if he gets touched, I love all that. Of course, he's the kind of player that opposition fans don't like. You know, a Jack Grealish wannabe, or a Timu Jack Grealish, that kind of stuff. But I think it's time for Jota Silva. And with taking Elanga out of the team doesn't mean he's not playing at all. Jota's only got to give us 60 minutes, and Elanga coming off fresh. He's come off the bench in the past and shown that he can change the game. He hasn't done anything at the moment really to change the direction of the games that we're playing when he started, or not too much from what I can recollect. So for me, I'm calling for Jota Silva to start against Ipswich, Elanga to be benched. But is it too far, Richard, to suggest that Callum also takes some time out and goes to the bench, and we bring Sosa in on the left? So, we've talked previously about how the wingers seem to come as a pair. And I know that's not written in stone. Of course it's not. But if we're going to start Silva on the right, Callum's only scored 2 goals this season. And yeah, I know it was one against Liverpool. We love him for that. But he hasn't been tracking back. It looks like he's got his thumb up his backside sometimes when he's not helping out the defence. And Moreno's trying to do it all on his own. So is it time for Sosa to get a start as well?
I mean, we've said as a pairing, those two, when they come off the bench, they certainly infuse something that seems to be missing at times. It's just not quite as consistent. I mean, that's been the theme all season long with both those players. I think first half being a perfect example of that for Callum Hudson-Odoi. He was non-existent in the first half. He showed a little bit more in the second half, and there is some merit to the fact that when he is on the pitch, he does command bodies, right? He people have to account for him because of that cutting ability, because he doesn't get easily dispossessed, because he can bring it across in a similar way like a point guard can draw people in and then kick it out for a three-pointer, right? That's kind of how he can operate sometimes. So there's some value with that. But as has been stated, he's a massive liability. I mean, if you look at this image, what's he doing? He's just sitting there. He's not offering anything, and this obviously led to a goal. Everything that Raf talked about, being sucked away from where you should be managing the space, which is right here. You've got Dominguez over here, you've got Moreno over here, and he's just sitting there looking at this play with two guys waiting for that ball to be brought across the face of goal. So it's a bit of a challenge. So when he's not on and he's not doing what he does well, it just becomes kind of similar to James Ward-Prowse. There's just not a lot of value there. So I wouldn't be opposed to it just as a change-up, just to see if it can create something different. Because as you've stated, we can always bring them on later. We'll see with Anthony Olenga. He may have a knock and he may not be able to play anyway. So we may be forced into that. Or maybe if Anderson's, healthy, maybe they consider putting him on the wing, even though we don't like him out wide. So I think it is time to make that switch, because we've got a little bit stagnant right now in the last two matches against two very good sides. We know that, with very talented players, but it might be a chance to switch it up a little bit and just kind of reconfigure the energy.
The second goal came after the break, and I felt that we were fortunate definitely to go in just 1-0 down. Let's quickly touch on Matt Sells. I mean, he made a couple of good saves, I think, in the first half. A friend of mine, Darren, he's an Arsenal fan. He actually messaged me about 10 minutes ago, and he said, you got Arsenal on the wrong day yesterday. They would have beaten most teams playing like that, and I agree with that. And he finishes by saying, I tell you what, though, your goalie is tip-top. So, Sells has come under criticism at different points. He was up for Player of the Month last month. He was up for Save of the Month last month. And, I'm one that's kind of tried to support him as much as possible, and others have wanted him out of the team. I think he's in to stay, barring any catastrophic error. And I'm not saying that he's all of a sudden the best goalkeeper in the world, but he seems to be making better saves now, saves that, he perhaps wasn't making previously. So for me, Sells' position is not under threat. The third goal yesterday, the third goal against Newcastle, were kind of similar in that he got beaten at his near post, which is obviously a concern. They weren't game-changing goals. The games had probably already gone for both of those. But I don't think, Wake Up News in the comments is saying time to see Miguel for me. I disagree. I value your opinion. I don't think Sells has done anything near wrong to be taken out of the team, and he's made some absolutely world-class saves. So, and I think to put Carlos Miguel in now at this point would not be the right move. But that's, again, just an opinion. And, like I said, I want you guys to have your opinion, put them in the comments, we'll read them out. We've all got an opinion, and it's important that we share them. But that second goal, I don't think Sells was at fault, Raf, for that. But we've allowed Thomas Partey far too much time. And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he do the same thing to us in the first season back in the Premier League when we lost 5-0? Partey scored from about the similar kind of range. So we know that he can hit them. Obviously, different. Well, listen, the team that played yesterday and the management team that played yesterday, I think the only person that's remaining from that is probably Ryan Yates. So, but there are videos available to go back and check. We shouldn't be allowing Thomas Partey that much space, should we?
No, but again, it's about jobs. And that zone in the D is, where is your midfield that is supposed to be blocking that off? Now, if we had even had a Morgan Gibbs-White on the field, the fact, like a terrier, he'd be blocking that, or probably actually giving away free kicks, sliding around, but at least he would have been around and about the ball, trying to block and close it down. Usually, that is that far out. I'm not expecting Milenkovic or Murillo to be coming out to do that. There was a person that was next to Milenkovic that ran out, but not quick enough to go and block it. And who was that? James Ward-Prowse. So, like, and this is what frustrates me, is the fact that I think James Ward-Prowse is probably an exceptional player when you are playing mid-table, low-table. But if you're playing the top four, if you're going to give him defensive duties, he's just not going to cut it. And there were too many instances yesterday where he wasn't doing his job, and in 2 cases that led to a goal. So for me, that's where there's just no one coming out. If you think about when we've really been on it, we are flying into blocks absolutely everywhere. Bodies are on the line absolutely everywhere. It's positioning that no one was close enough to be able to put their body on the line. But it's not like Thomas Partey is the magic man with his movement. They were lining up across there. It could have been like anyone that had taken that ball. So it's in these specific instances that it's not great. But even if they had blocked that goal, then they were just on the day. The movement off the ball by Arsenal was exemplary. Like, it was just chasing shadows. The work rate of them moving absolutely everywhere. Watched a few more games this weekend. No one's come close to them in terms of movement off the ball. And unless you've got your bank of 3 all in midfield, as your one job is to chase and block all of that, if you've got Yates all the way up here, James Ward-Prowse all the way down here, it's not. And I think that's what Nuno was getting at, was we're not compact. You didn't have that compact 3. But I've got a question. Why didn't we? Yates must have been told, be up there to do something.
But why was he up there? Because I noticed that. It's like,
I don't know.
I was expecting them to set up with Yates and Ward-Prowse and Dominguez really kind of sticking in that 3 quite rigidly. And when I saw Yates almost in the number 9 position, let alone the number 10 position, it's like, what is going on? I mean, I think, Bruce, if I remember rightly, you'll correct me, but did you have something to say about James Ward-Prowse previously on some chats I've seen? Because I thought about James Ward-Prowse. I thought Bruce might have something to say about him.
I've been pretty opinionated about him towards a few people. Yes. I don't understand the James Ward-Prowse love the last few games. It seems like Forest fans and other pods have been just had this romantic view of what James Ward-Prowse was, and he's this golden child. And I've seen one good game, and that was the Liverpool game. And he's been, at best, average for us, at best. And honestly, he's been pretty dreadful the last 3 games he's played for us. A lot of people were defending the red card, calling it honorable, and well, he made a terrible play right before that to cause that. He's not a starter for me. He's a how was it said yesterday? A luxury player that can come off the bench at best. And once we get healthy, I don't see him touching the pitch again.
I think that's the key, Bruce. I think that's the key, is the health factor. Because if we think about it, if it was we knew, and any logical person says we need 3 in midfield, because Arsenal are going to have 3 in midfield and they're all rather good. So we need 3. Who's stepping up? We always say next man up, but we only have 3 fit midfielders.
This is it. And that Gibbs-White, Anderson, Sangare, and Danilo all out. I mean, I popped in the comments. Would we be better served going to a back 3, and not necessarily going with the back 3 with high flying wing backs, but maybe making it a back 5 actually. So 3 centre backs, and then keeping your defenders in, so there's no space for Saka. Because I know Raf, you were saying, look, if we go to a back 3, then it's going to allow Saka that space, and you are right to say that. But if we go to a back 3 with Morata going in against Milenkovic and Murillo, with, let's say, a Williams coming on and Aina, or whoever it is, then you've got that solid base, and then you can build on it. But it felt like we were picking a team that we were all happy with, Richard. But with Yates playing in the 10 or the 9 or whatever he was doing, and Ward-Prowse walking around making mistakes and letting people go for the first goal, and Callum not tracking back, and Anthony Elanga making some runs, but going down like he'd been shot. I mean, he had the arm go across his collarbone. I mean, I don't know. Look, I just kind of felt like, come on, it wasn't that bad. Was he trying to get taken off? Had he had enough? Did he want to get taken out of the game or something? Because I'll be honest with you, I don't think that Anthony Elanka's heart is in it anymore. I think that actually we should have taken the money from Newcastle. I said it at the time. We should have taken 50 million. We're never going to get, ever in a million years, that kind of money for Anthony Elanga offered again. We should have let him go. And since then, was his head turned? And against Newcastle, when we got schooled in the second half, was he thinking, I could have been playing for them? I could have been on that wing for them. I don't know. I mean, I'm putting the question out there.
I think it's a situation.
Sorry, Wolf is asking, you think they'll offer 50 million again? No, they won't.
No.
Or was that supposed to be offered £50 again? But we're not going to get our money, Richard, are we?
Well, I think there's that, yeah, for sure, based off performance to date and form to date. But I think it's a situation where we may have asked, from a dressing room standpoint, he's great, right? He's an amazing personality. He gels with these great guys who bring that, which is true.
That's right. Don't read it, because Elanga did way more than CHO. Steve-O, you're right, but I still don't think he did a lot.
But you got to look at it in totality, right? Because Callum Hudson-Odoi's put in, I think, more regular performances than Anthony Elanga has, at least this season, and certainly toward the ends of last season. It kind of flipped, right? Because Elanga was great under Cooper, and he wasn't great, and he hasn't been great under Nuno. So the question becomes, is it more of an issue related to how he fits the program that Nuno is developing? And that may be the problem. Right? I think there was comments made about not wanting to let him go, even with that price point, because they were concerned about what that does to the dressing room. That can't be the only factor. And based off of how things are going right now, you're keeping, I think, Greg, you and I were messaging back and forth about this yesterday. You can't keep guys who seem to fit the framework better on the bench for somebody who you are hoping will reach that potential, because the raw material is there. And that's been the case since he was at Manchester United. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, even though Nuno has gotten a lot out of Chris Wood, he's gotten a lot out of Ryan Yates, he's gotten more out of Morgan Gibbs-White. He's getting players to elevate their game, but for whatever reason, he's not one of them. So I think we're going to get profit from him, because someone will say, I can take that raw material, case in point, Newcastle, and I can turn that into something that's valuable. Maybe that's true, but I agree with you, Greg. At the time, I was of the same opinion. I still wish we had done it, even though I love the guy as an individual person, and I love the raw material. He just has not manifested on the pitch since at least since the first half of last season.
Wolfie wants to pose a question, which it's a loaded question, and he knows what he's doing, but I'll read it out anyway. Bruce, I'll ask you this. Question for the panel. Who is better, Elanga or Jono? And he means Brennan Johnson there.
John, yeah.
Go for it.
Jono, yeah. To be no question. I mean, but to Richard's point, they're here and not at United and not at City and not at Chelsea and Arsenal because they're not consistent. So we're going to have these ruts. They're going to fall out of form. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to sell Elanga. I still want him on our squad. I still want him to play. I still want him to come off as a sub. I still want him here. I'm not ready to sell anybody on our besides maybe James Ward-Prowse. But Jono, same thing. Jono, he lacked consistency. He got dug out quite a bit by Forest fans. And so has Elanga and CHO and Wood and Awani. That's why they're here. But what we have to do, Nuno, is play the hot hand. Play when, Jota's playing great right now. Why aren't we starting him over Elanga?
I think I was quite impressed with Nuno after post-match. I thought that he spoke really well. It was a hard day for us. We got beat. We got beat in the Premier League against Arsenal, who've been challenging for the title for the last 2 years. Okay? We were perhaps a bit fortunate that it wasn't a bit more than that. We had moments in the game where we could have scored, potentially. Right at the start, Callum scuffed the shot that came over from, I think it was Ola Aina that crossed it at that time, on that occasion. And, that could have been a different game if that had gone in. So, I want to try and take positives away. There aren't many positives, but I thought Nuno noticed and knew what was going on. And I felt, Richard, that he spoke well. Do you think that we might see a real shake-up then with Ipswich next week at home at the City Ground?
It's possible, and someone actually just put in the comments here that he is more of a left winger. I think it's Steve-O that said this, and maybe that's part of the process. I agree. I don't disagree that he performed well in that role. I mean, we all remember the Newcastle match, right? But I think last season when we played away,
he was on the right. Didn't he?
Yeah, what's that?
He was on the right.
Oh, was he on the right? I thought he was on the left. Maybe I think it was just the positioning of one of the
Yeah.
balls that he got to. Yeah, he looked like he was coming from the left. But anyway, the point being is that he just hasn't performed since that time. So maybe that's a factor. I don't know. It's kind of difficult, right? Because you've found yourself feeling like there's this sort of way that they've developed as a team, and both off the pitch and on the pitch, to try to change things up now. Is it the right time to do that? Frankly, from my own personal opinion, I agree. I think we should. I think if nothing else, maybe if Alenga's fit, you move him to the left, try Jota on the right, and see what you generate. I mean, it's not always a good opportunity to be tinkering too much when you've shown success in previous matches, but at the same time, we're starting to drift towards a pattern of play that we don't want, and that includes 2 losses.
Yeah. Raf, any positives to take away for you?
There are. But what I would say is that when we've been successful this season, it's because we have tactically thought about the game coming up and not just played the hand we feel like we should play. It's suited to who we're playing. If we think about who's coming up next, and it's Ipswich, you've got Leif Davis, who's their right back that spends most of his time near the opposition box. So there's going to be huge amounts of space for Callum to do his thing. Right, it's like or put Elanga down there, but I don't think you even need the pace to get there. There'll be no one in that whole space, and then Callum can do what he needs to do. So I don't think we'll actually see too much change to the team, other than I think the midfield. I think we'll definitely go back to our 2 midfield, 3 attackers, and you might find that Jota gets put in the 10 if neither Anderson nor Morgan Gibbs-White are fit, and I do hope so because I'm quite excited to see what that looks like. But for me, the positives, one, Sells, right? He's now consistently pulling off top class saves, right? And you've got other fan bases that are coming, like you've said, Greg, that are coming on and saying, wow, your keeper's actually really good. Who would have thought we'd have that? If you think back to the beginning of the season, how much we were tearing our hair out about everything. And, with segments, Greg, if you're going to talk about them, of things that, I would love to talk about Sells last season against Sells this season. And he is miles better, like miles better. He's really kicked on, which is really good.
And he did us a favour last season when he came in as well, to be fair. Let's not forget that. When he came in, he wasn't mind-blowing, but he solved the problem we were having. And for him to improve...
His stats were terrible, but the stats of everyone else were so bad that he made it look okay, but he was still at the bottom of the pile of keepers generally last season. So, but the big plus for me is Taiwo. T looked like old T, right? He looked lean. Yeah, he did to me, because he hustled. He won the ball back a number of times. He was jostling. He was barging people off. He actually had that first bit of pace off the first foot, of beginning to come back, and that's what he was missing, chasing down balls. And do you know, he wasn't exactly the most unbelievably graceful athlete back when he was at peak form, smashing in 8 goals in 8 games. He looks like he did yesterday, and he's not 100% there, but he is now like 85% back to what he wants. And that was in a game where everyone was not on their game against an absolutely tip-top opposition. You put T up against Ipswich, and I reckon we'll see old T all over again. But I imagine Chris Wood will start again. Now he's hopefully off his jet lag. But for me, Taiwo, massive plus. Jota showing what he can do, coming off the bench, maybe having a starting role. Sells for me. Massive plus that Aina was not injured, as some people thought he might be, because he came back early from international duty.
That was prearranged, I think. The coach came out and said that
I just had the fear.
Yeah.
And he's back, and he actually had for all of the defensive team, I actually think Aina probably had the best game out of all 4 of them along the back line. So those are my positives, because I always try and find something that's positive. Those are definitely my positives out of the game.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, so look, it was a defeat for us. We've only lost 3 games this season. The bigger picture is that we are sitting 7th, I think, still following the games today. Newcastle might overtake us if they beat West Ham tomorrow, which I expect them to do. But, we would have all taken this start. None of us should be too disgruntled. I mean, we've lost against Arsenal. The Fulham game at home was the blip, and that's the one I think we shouldn't have lost. And, of course, the game against Newcastle we know about. So, look, let's keep our chins up. We're not being happy clappers. We're trying to be positive. We don't want to, be all doom and gloom. We've got plenty to be feeling positive about. Ipswich next Saturday is a chance for us to get back to winning ways. All right, let's take a quick break. A word from our fantastic sponsor, the Cheese Trader. So if you haven't yet had your supper, feast your eyes on some of this lovely cheese.
This York shop is a cheese lover's paradise. The Cheese Trader is home to an array of fine British cheeses, not only selling it but offering an epic cheesy street food menu too. Guests can choose from a main dish and then select all the different types of cheese they'd like on top, alongside an array of other toppings. We tried their loaded fries and posh cheese toasties, both of which were absolutely smothered in gorgeous melted cheddar. We even chose a whole camembert to top our fries, which was so tasty, like a cheesy salt and pepper dish. The posh cheese on toast was some of the best toast we've ever had, with so many amazing flavours to it that perfectly paired with the cheese, tucked away just off Grape Lane. This is the perfect spot for a great lunch.
The perfect spot indeed for a great lunch. Stu Freestone is the Cheese Trader in York, and he's a Forest fan. He is an absolutely fantastic guy. So if you want some Christmas cheeses for your buffet or for your table, get in touch with the Cheese Trader. All the information is in the bio. Don't forget to quote Talking Reds for your 10% discount. And that's a 10% discount every time you order, not just a one-off thing. All right. So the time has come. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to do this. Yes, yes, yes. The magic wheel of fortune has been put onto the screen because we are going to reveal the winners of our Talking Reds giveaway. Would have liked there to have been maybe a few more entrants, but for everyone that took the time to enter, thank you very much. What we'll do is we'll give it a spin. I think my camera's freezing, but can you guys hear me still? Just to make sure that you can still hear me.
We can hear you.
Perfect. Yep. We'll give the wheel a spin. The first person that gets revealed on this wheel or on this spin will be the winner of the pre-match Nottingham Forest shirt. It can be the white one, the red one, or the blue one, or the green one, I think. What I'll do is I'll reach out to the person who's won, and we'll get the size you want and the color you want, and we'll get it ordered and get it delivered to you straight away. So, without any further hesitation, this is for the shirt. Let's get this show on the road. So, if you're watching and sitting comfortably, and the winner is at Red Tricky Tree. At Red Tricky Tree, you are the winner of the pre-match jersey. Well done
Harsh
to
on M,
you.
who was there. Harsh on Laura, who was right there.
I know,
right in the middle.
I know. Laura Forrest just went past, and Emma as well, and Elliott was just nearly there, and Des was nearly there. Yeah. So at Red Tricky Tree. I've got names written down somewhere, so I've just used everyone's X handle for this. So I'm going to take Red Tricky Tree out of the game because we're going to spin now for the cheese. So at Red Tricky Tree.
That's right. You've just won the grand prize.
Yeah, I've got these jingles, and I've got to use them. So there we go. Let's roll it again. Let's roll it again. This time. This one is for the cheese. And this one goes to Stuart Clarkson. Stuart Clarkson, you have won yourself the cheese coming from the Cheese Trader. So I'm going to be reaching out to you guys to get your information and all the rest of it, so that I can get the Cheese Trader to send you, Stuart, the cheese directly. And also I'll reach out to our winner of the shirt as well and make sure that we can get the right size for you. But thank you very much to everybody who took part. And thank you very much to Stu Freestone, the cheese trader, who, of course, has provided the cheese, clearly. And he also paid for the shirt as our sponsor. So thank you very much to him. So we'll do another one of those, maybe, in the new year. We'll come up with another giveaway at some point down the line. We thank you all for subscribing, and we thank you all for watching along and all that kind of feeling. And you know what? I wish I had a shirt for everybody or a piece of cheese for everybody at least. But okay, right. Let's look at the time. We've got a little bit of time left. We did this the other day, but I didn't do it for Bruce.
This is a tasty burger.
So yes, this is our little fun section where we ask our guests, and all Raf and Richard have already taken part in this, but Bruce, what is, in your opinion, the best burger? So it could be that you tell me your favorite restaurant or the favorite burger from a restaurant. It might not even be your favorite restaurant. It could be actually, you know what, that burger in that restaurant is the best. And obviously, I know that you, as soon as we did this, you guys in the chat, Richard and you, it's very American. Oh, we got this, we got that, we got this, we got that. You know, it's all obviously 10 times better than we've got. But over to you, Bruce. Give us your best burger.
I wouldn't say 10 times better. When we were in England, we stopped by a place in London called Burger and Lobster and Burger. I can't remember the name. And that burger, very good. Top three I've had. It was delicious. Here in the States, if I'm going out, Jake's Burger is just a local burger place. It's my favorite burger. Very meat and cheese. That's how I like my burgers. But I love cooking. I like cooking my own burger. If you put a little bit of Italian sausage in the meat, probably about 20% of your beef or 80% beef, 20% Italian sausage, roll it up, put some herbs and seasoning. That's how I like it.
So you're saying your best burger is Bruce's best burger?
Yeah, it's Bruce's burger. Yeah, that's the best burger.
I'm coming to Texas for a Bruce burger.
With the cheese trader's cheese. By the way, my alternate handle is Stuart Clarkson, so send the cheese my way.
Excellent. Okay, right. So also wanted to touch on this guy. I know that Raf, you're a big fan and you talked about him. It has been reported in The Athletic that he is just about to sign that contract that has been talked about for a few weeks now. They're pushing close. I mean, Ola Aina has really made a mark, hasn't he, Richard, since he came into Nottingham Forest? Certainly this year. I mean, I think last year he was good, but he had a little bit of an injury problem. He was away at AFCON. But this season he seems to have really just, been one of the main guys, hasn't he?
His skill set on the ball is just, is as good as Morgan Gibbs-White is, as good as Elliott Anderson, as good as some of the other players on our team are, Callan Hudson-Odoi included in that. He is so silky smooth, man. I mean, the way he glides up that line, the way that that first play with Elanga, actually, that first opportunity for counter, it was just so beautifully orchestrated, and he just moved into position so perfectly. And there's just, I don't know, something really engaging about when you watch him play. I mean, and when he has the ball at his feet and he can use both feet so perfectly well, he's so balanced there. Yeah, he's one of the best things that have happened to our club in a while in terms of getting him on a free and how he's infused such a love and a sort of togetherness in the team as well. And the way that he engages the rest of the team is just, it's so refreshing to watch. But yeah, his on the pitch play is unparalleled, I think, in our back four.
What kind of contract length should we be giving him, Raf? I think it's a 4-year deal, I think they've said. Happy with that?
I think in contract world, by the time, if you take 2 years off whatever you've offered, that's when you start actually thinking about, I need to do something else with the contract. So I think 4 is basically a 2-year stint of us not having to worry about anything, and for the value to be held if we then sell him and get basically pure profit minus agency fees on what was a free transfer, which is just amazing. So I think 4 would be the minimum. If we gave him 5, I'd be delighted because I have a massive man crush on him. He's my favorite player. But yeah, he's great. And I love the fact he plays in the baggiest trousers in the entire world. His shorts, you could fit another 3 people in them. It's amazing.
Murillo's the same. He does the same. Murillo.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to touch on it because it was breaking news a couple of hours ago. If you haven't heard it, Leicester City announced that they have sacked Steve Cooper. So Cooper is a guy who any Forest fan should really hold in their hearts in the highest esteem, because he was the one that got us out of the Championship. We know the story. You don't need me to go over that. We know the story. And we know how it ended, and we know that, it might have been time to go in some people's eyes, and they should have perhaps got rid of him a bit sooner, and so on and so on and so on. But he's been sacked at Leicester after just 15 games. They're not in the bottom three. And in fact, I don't think they've really flirted with the bottom three all season with the teams that have been down there that haven't had the best of starts, such as Palace and Wolves, although they're picking up a little bit now. Leicester have played 12 games. They've got 10 points. Is that a bit harsh, do you think, Bruce, for Cooper to be sacked at this stage? I mean, I'm thinking they come out the Championship. They've not got a load of people that are the, world beaters. Should Leicester be expecting more? Is that fair, do you think, on Steve Cooper?
I don't know what their expectations were going in. I mean, obviously higher than where they're at, but to me, it was harsh. It surprised me. It took me off. I don't know what their plan is. If they have somebody better in line already that they're talking to, I don't know. It's just confusing to me. To me, it was they're in the group where they probably should be in the bottom six, but not bottom three. To me, that's where their talent says they should be, and that's where Cooper has them. So they're not. They should still be safe, but I don't know. It's confusing to me. I'm lost at that one. But I'm going to steal something from Paul real quick. At least we can all cheer for Leicester to get relegated now.
Well, I was going to cheer anyway. I mean, that wouldn't have stopped me cheering, to be honest with you. But I do feel a bit bad for Steve Cooper, because I've got nothing but respect for him. I know you feel the same, Richard, in terms of the respect level. And I said in the chat, at least we don't have to welcome him back to the City Ground this season as their Leicester fan. And I always felt, I think I even said it in our preseason predictions, we play Leicester towards the end, don't we? And I said, I don't even think that he'll be the manager by that point. And lo and behold, he's been sacked before December's even hit. I've said a couple of times that I think Ruud van Nistelrooy is the shoe-in. It just feels like, he's the vogue guy at the moment who has obviously had that little stint at Man U, and he's a big name. And with his availability and maybe his agent or whoever it is that represents him, maybe pushing for him somewhere, maybe top at Leicester, the ownership there have thought, you know what, let's move. I don't think Steve Cooper was ever the right fit for Leicester City, Richard. Was this always going to happen, do you think, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think so. Both in terms of how he manages things tactically and formationally, and then just, I think, where they were at with the potential looming points deduction as well. I mean, maybe they were thinking, look at what he did with Forest in the Championship and the way that he helped them to ascend and get promoted. So maybe if that was a situation where they sort of were playing the yo-yo game and they were dropping down in the Championship, he'd be a good guy to help bring them back up. I'm not sure if that was part of the vision. But yeah, I mean, I think we talked to Alan Merriweather, and he was saying everyone locally was not happy with that. They wanted the manager from West Brom, if I'm not mistaken. So they were more inclined to that, to appoint him. So yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's unfortunate. I think he's definitely going to land somewhere, and I think he'll do a good job. I think Coventry is one that's been thrown around in our personal chat. Yeah, but I don't know how viable that really is. But he's probably ready for a break, and he's taking away a pretty decent pay with him, I'm sure, to terminate him. So great guy, amazing. But
what about you, Raf? I mean, if you were Steve Cooper, you've only had 15 games at Leicester. You had that good amount of time off before taking Leicester. Would you want to get straight back into it? I mean, does he need a break? I see him in the Championship as his next job, if I'm honest with you. What about you? Where do you see Steve Cooper next?
If I were Cooper, I think his Leicester stint hasn't harmed his CV at all. If you think about where Leicester was, he came in, and where he's leaving them, he's actually left them in very healthy shape, and he's ticked the box of probably what his mission statement was for his job, which was keep us safe above the relegation zone. And he's done that. What he did at Forest never got us relegated either. So he's gone into clubs and he's kept them up. I think he needs to not become a Dyche Mark II. and just be synonymous with going into clubs that are just trying to avoid relegation. I think he doesn't take a job straight away, and he picks the next job very carefully. It's not a championship club. He waits for the right Premier League club that's going to take a punt on him, that he bonds with the ownership structure. There's a decent set of players that are there, and he can do his man management thing that he does very, very well to get the best out of that group of players. I think that's what he does. He's got enough cash. He doesn't need to go into a job straight away.
Yeah, I think they've all got enough cash. I think it's about wanting to work and wanting to do well work with the players. I wish him well wherever he ends up, as long as when he plays against us, he doesn't win. But yeah, Steve Cooper sacked today by Leicester. Okay, we're just about out of time. So before we finish, we wanted to do this again.
Yeah, so just again, keeping mental health month at the forefront for everybody. We appreciate the opportunity we have to share this message because it's critical. And it says here, for those who are not watching and listening, November is Men's Mental Health Month. We want to remind every male, not just today, your life matters. Even when things feel hopeless and dark, don't give up. You've come this far for a reason. You have the strength to get through any inner battle you're facing. And remember, you are never alone. You have a purpose, and people who know you love you, even when your brain tells you otherwise. So for those who may be going through this, our DMs are open. I know Greg's brought that up many times. I'm sure the other guys on this pod right now and others that we have contributing to the pod, as well as other podcasts. I know Anna's brought it up multiple times. Talk to your GP, get an opportunity to find the right care that you need from a clinician so that you have that support. But again, we are here to support you as well. We want everyone to know that.
I think Anna was saying previously that if you're in knots, you don't even need a GP referral. You can refer yourself. Perfect. So, it's a very important topic, one that we care about, and we hope that you guys out there are feeling good and feeling fine. But Men's Mental Health Month in November. We've been doing it at the end of every episode just to make sure that the message isn't forgotten. Okay, we're out of time. I want to say thanks ever so much for everyone joining us. Just some quick final thoughts around the panel. Bruce, what's the plan for the rest of the day over in Texas?
Oh, probably watch American football and get ready for the week. Pretty lazy Sunday.
Thanks for being with us, Bruce. Raf?
Thank you.
Pleasure as always. Same answer. American football. And then bed. I think we might get the same answer up here.
We're going to go upwards to Richard Spray. What are you doing today, Richard?
I'm watching football, American football. It's my Lions, buddy. I gotta keep a weathering eye on the Lions. But I will say one thing. So I want to shout out to, he's never going to hear this, I'm sure, Danny Stutzman, who plays linebacker for the University of Oklahoma. He's basically been starting for 4 years. He's the Ryan Yates, right? I mean, the guy that you want doing the interviews, the guy who galvanizes on the field. He's one of our own. He's been there since he was a freshman. He has been the biggest champion for what we do as a university. And he's this guy, when national, it's basically name, image, and likeness money, right? So they get paid now to do certain things, which they didn't get done, just didn't happen in college football previously. In fact, it was a violation. But he took his money and he spread it throughout the entire team. He didn't take it for himself, right? Even though he was getting a high amount of money for what he was doing and the kind of marketing and publication he was doing for the university. So bless that man. He's done a great job, and he played absolutely out of his mind last night. And so it's just great to see him get sent off in a really honorable way. So Danny Stutzman, great Oklahoma Sooner.
Sounds like a good guy. Don't forget to catch the one with Mark Dennison. The Forest Stadium announcer was a guest of ours earlier on in the week. So the one with Mark Dennison is available on the back catalogue, as is the one with Gary Cumberland. Don't forget about him. He's the chap who has that fantastic website, thecityground.com. So if you haven't checked out thecityground.com, please do so, because it's full. It's a treasure trove of Forest trivia and stats and facts and all kinds of things. So do check that out as well. We're going to be back on Tuesday as we go for the one with Alan March. So another well-known sports commentator and broadcaster and Forest fan, Alan March, will be in the guest chair to join us for the one with. Thanks to Raf, to Bruce, to Richard. This is Talking Reds, and we'll see you next time.